McKinsey has been advising companies in South Africa for 22 years, but being embroiled in a political scandal might drive it out of business. Its work with local consultancy firm Trillion Capital was put under the spotlight last year and has left many South Africans enraged. The former Gupta-owned company was accused of siphoning off millions of dollars from a state-owned power utility. The Gupta family has been accused of influencing state contracts in favor of President Jacob Zuma's business interests. McKinsey, the Guptas, and Zuma have all denied any wrongdoings. But that's not stopping the public from putting pressure on companies to boycott McKinsey. Coca-Cola and South African energy company Sasol are the latest names to abandon business with the firm. In November, 3 of South Africa's biggest lenders cut ties with McKinsey, and it's not the only company under fire. In October, 8 senior executives left global auditor KPMG. Their departures followed internal investigations that found the work they'd done for the Guptas fell short of company standards. British public relations firm Bell Pottinger went bankrupt in September. It lost a massive number of clients and contracts over accusations that it had organized a racially divisive PR campaign on behalf of the Guptas. The South African currency tumbled against the US dollar in the months following the scandal, but the rand has recently pared back those losses. Around the world, authorities are tightening their reins on consultancy firms. India has slapped a 2-year auditing ban on PricewaterhouseCoopers, better known as PwC, after it failed to spot a $1.7 billion fraud at an Indian tech firm. The message to these companies is to make sure their work and that of their clients adds up. Laila Humairah, TRT World.
Let's go to Johannesburg now and speak to Ian Cruickshanks. He's Chief Economist at the South African Institute of Race Relations. Ian, welcome back to Money Talks. Great to have you as always. Let's talk about a couple of parliamentary probes that are going on into this whole scandal. There's a parliamentary inquiry going on into contracts awarded by Eskom, that is the state power provider and a client of McKinsey's. And there's another probe going on by the state's Special Investigating Unit, and that is due to get underway. How are Coca-Cola's and Sasol's moves to cut ties with McKinsey going to affect those investigations?
I don't know if there'll be a direct effect on those investigations, but it all goes around to the whole moral standard of business doing business with business. And I think that this is now going to run the risk of endangering foreign capital's inflow into South Africa. So yes, there's a very real risk, and this seems to be amplified by the fact that people like McKinsey's, in whom one would have expected to have huge trust, never saw what the problems were, never don't admit to having an inkling of it. And, it just begins to raise a question mark as to say, did they see something wrong and look the other way perhaps? So now with this sort of doubt, it's going to mean that foreign capital flows may be withheld, may be slowed down, and that's going to slow our overall economic recovery in the shorter to medium term, in fact.
Now that is a good question. So, good point. So the economy is already been feeling the impact of the scandal, but you think that the longer this scandal drags on, there's likely to be even greater impact on the rand, for example, going forwards into this year.
Exactly. I think that sums it up very well. What the risk is that it's all about capital flows. We're a capital short country, and we've got to find it. But the demands of the investment community have got to be met, and their requirement is that certain standards must be upheld. And if we're finding that within our own sector, within South African-based companies, that they are not, in fact, coming up to those standards, it's going to bring the whole economic circle to a halt. And instead of having an economy of growth and job creation and profits and good returns, it's going to be the opposite. And this is really what this investigation can do. If we don't get to the bottom of it, quickly, then we're not going to be able to make progress in growing this economy, which is desperately short of stimulants right now.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about the overall corporate culture in South Africa. Do you think that we can see the departures of Coca-Cola and Sasol as part of a broader shift towards greater accountability? Or do you see them as yet another symptom of the ingrained corruption that has been there for decades?
Well, I wouldn't like to suggest that a company like Coca-Cola has ingrained corruption in it, but there's ingrained corruption in the South African side of transactions in which they have been involved. You know, we can recognize, as South Africans, we can recognize what outsiders say. They say, look, the moral standing of your public sector is not satisfactory. We're not sure that we want to transact with you. And I think what we're seeing now is with certain private sector disasters having come to light in the last couple of months, which they're looking at us and saying, foreigners are looking at us and saying, hey, you know what, your whole moral standards are unsatisfactory, and therefore that's going to hold back the transfer of capital to the country and the potential growth outlook.
Right. Ian Cruickshanks, Chief Economist at the South African Institute of Race Relations, thank you very much indeed.